We'll now make another change to the piece part. I'm going to add some flats to each side of the part. And this will also cause us to reduce the progression of the strip, otherwise we'd have too much scrap in between the stations. So first thing I'm going to do is open up the strip assembly. And then, since this is a change to the part itself, we need to do that in the reference part. So I'll open up the part called Dimple tab. And the reference part is the one that has the station marks in it. So I'm going to roll up in the feature manager tree above that 010 station mark. And I'm just going to create those flats, I'm going to create a sketch on this top face. And draw a rectangle. I'm going to convert these two edges using the LogoPress 3 Convert for Construction. And then place two dimensions. I'm going to dimension from here to this edge. And I can make this dimension under liters. I want to make it a minimum dimension. So I have a dimension up here. And I want that to be 0.0625, 1/16 of an inch. I'm going to place the same dimension down here. Here's a little trick. If I hold down the Shift key before I make that selection, it automatically makes it a minimum dimension. And then I'll just place the dimension on the overall width here and make it 8 inches. And I'll also place the dimension here from the center of here to one of these edges, 4 inches, half of that. Just so we know we'll have it extending out past the part in each direction. Then I'll go over here to features and use a cut extrude, SOLIDWORKS cut extrude feature to cut through all. And I want to flip the side that's going to get cut. Using this option, flip side to cut. Now you can see there's a little arrow right here going to the outside. So instead of cutting the inside, it's going to cut the outside. And now we have two flats on the part. We're going to roll down to the end of the feature tree. You see our blank is also updated. And save. I'll tab back over to the strip assembly. And you can see it has not updated yet into the part because just like the last change that we had made, we have to select update the stations of the annex part using the strip. This will update the body files that the annex part is referencing. Do I want to rebuild the reference part? Yes. And now you can see the part has updated. So now I'm going to go into Create Edit Strip Layout. I need to update the sketch for this punch, this end cutoff punch. And also, I need to update, I want to change my progression because there's too much scrap now in between this in between the stations. So I'll do that first. I'm going to come down here. Actually, I'll change the sketch for the end cutoff first. I'll click on it, select Edit the sketch of the selected punch. And I want to convert some additional geometry into the sketch of this punch. This is new geometry. That's why it did not update automatically. So we have to convert this in manually because since it's new, LogoPress and SolidWorks doesn't know that this is supposed to be what to do with it. So I'm going to select Convert Entities, SolidWorks Sketch, Convert Entities, select, this is the blank sketch I'm selecting, those two vertical lines, and convert them off from the blank sketch into the sketch for this punch. Then I'll use the SolidWorks trim command to trim this area away. And this is the power trim function I'm using, where I can just cross over the area I want to trim. And now this punch is now updated to the new geometry. And apply that change. And I'll save. I can now change the progression of the strip. So go to the tab called Strip, and down here I'll change the progression by 1/8 inch because I reduced the width of the part by 1/16 on each side, so that's an 1/8 inch. And I'm also going to well, I'll update that right away by hitting apply. And I'm also going to move the part, because you can see I'm going to recenter the part this way, because you see this cutoff punch, the length of it did update with that progression change, but the position is now going into the part itself. We want that to remain in the scrap area with this mismatch. So I'm going to change the part position by an 1/8 inch, reduce that. So it's just sliding it over the X part position an 1/8 inch. Actually, I'm going to reduce that by only a 1/16, so I'll just minus 0.0625, and you can see now it is 1.6875, and I'll hit apply. And I did that way because now the pilot holes are now still centered in between the two stations. This punch now, it is too close to the part itself. I want this edge to be still in the scrap. So I'm going to click on it, select, edit the sketch of the selected punch, and I'm just going to reduce these two values by an 1/8 inch. And you can see it is now in the correct position. everything updated nicely, even our cutoff punch. You can see, but I have to apply the change of this cut. And I'll click OK, and I will update the information note. And save that change. I will now tab back over to the tool assembly. There are some errors here, but we did change the progression. So let's see what happened there. First, you can see that the form punch, which is defined off of this part, did not move. But now that the progression has been reduced by 1/8 inch, the end of this die block is going too far. So, and if I measure this, you can see the normal distance is 1/2 inch. So I'm going to reduce the length of this by that 1/2 inch plus an 1/8 inch gap. So I'll go into tool structure, select the die block, scroll down, and right here I'll go minus 0.62558. I also need to change the length of this die block. So I'll make sure I have focus in the select the plate box, select it, and I'm going to increase the length of this block right here. See, plus a 1/2 an inch. Let's see what that looks like. That looks good. And I'm also going to reselect this die block, and I notice that this is 14 1/8. Let's make that an even 14 inches. There we go. And exit tool structure. If you ever do see this where the screws do not look like they're in line with the holes, that is most likely a rebuild issue. If I just put focus in the graphics area and do a Control Q rebuild, you can see that the positions are now correct. And you can see, show the rest of this, you can see that the errors have been just corrected. Those errors were caused by items being forced off of the blocks that they once were on because of that progression change. So we just had to make a few minor adjustments to the length of blocks, make one shorter, make this one shorter, make this one a little bit longer, and I do see a couple of other things. You can see the position of the lifter pins need to be updated. So I'm just going to click on one of them and select Edit Positioning Sketch. And I'm going to show the strip layout. And I'm going to reduce these dimensions. I'll reduce this one by, see what a 1/2 inch looks like. That looks good. And this one right here, I'll reduce that one by a little bit more also. Say a 1/4 inch. Show the strip again just to make sure it's going to look good. Exit the sketch, and the position's updated. I'll double check that show the strip again and make sure that the stripper plate, yep, that all updated there, along with the position of the pilot holes. And I'll also look at the upper, yep, all my pilots positions have updated, and the position of my punches, everything looks good. I'll save this. And then if I go into, say, the drawing for that die block, you can see it's telling me that something has changed in this die block. Do you want to update the table? Yes. And now the geometry is already updated to the new locations from the progression change. But now the whole table is already updated. That's the power of parametrics. I'll save this. And of course, we would want to do that to each and every block that we know had changed. Open up the drawing for that. And cutoff block, yes. Update the table. Because now you can see that was 4 inches long. Now it's 4.5. Show the middle. Yes, update the table. I notice now some of the springs are not in the right location. So I'm going to go back to the tool assembly. I'll click on one of these springs. Select Edit Positioning Sketch. Puts me into the sketch for that. And here we can see how they're breaking in. So I'll just slide that one over just a little bit. If I had a dimension, I would change that. Check to see if any other ones are breaking into anything. No, they're fine. Exit out of sketch. That'll update. Tab back over to the drawing. Yes, I want to update the whole table. Now you can see that's out of position, or in the new position. If we feel that this is too close, we could move those also. Open up the drawing for the two shoes. Update that whole table for each one of these. This has all the new positions for springs and everything that moved. You see everything moved and all the dimensions have changed with that. And now that change is completed, including the detailed drawings.